Hello, this is Pastor Frank Lewis, and welcome to another program in which I'm going to be talking to you about the best way and the way to raise children. And we're going to be talking today specifically about how mothers who are wounded and who have unresolved emotional pain can affect their children in ways that is remarkable and debilitating. And so we want to look at that in depth, and we will. And I want you to realize that 2 weeks ago, I talked about ideal mothers, mothers that really, I set the ideal. This is the way mothers need to be. Well, today I'm going to be talking about mothers that are emotionally wounded, have unresolved emotional pain, mothers that are angry, and mothers that can't really feel. In other words, they're shut down. And how and what effect those different types of mothers will have on their children. But before I do, I want to talk to you and make you aware of my book. This is the book. It is the book on which everything is based. So it's my book that I wrote. It's called The Key, as you can see. And this is a key for emotional healing. And what we're going to find out today is that emotional healing, if there's not emotional healing, it's really going to hurt children. Parents that are not emotionally healed are going to have a direct effect on their children, and it's not going to be good. And so you need this book in order to be able to get emotionally healed and know how to do it. The key to emotional healing is in the book. You can get it on Amazon, and I suggest you do it. The other thing you can do is come to my YouTube channel, which is at Fortifying Families 4. At Fortifying Families 4. And the reason it's in that format is because somebody else had the name Fortifying Families, so we had to just make it a little bit different. So I'm going to dig in now and talk about mothers that have unresolved emotional pain and they are emotionally wounded and what it does in affecting their kids. So it is a reality, first of all, that mothers that have unresolved emotional pain, there's going to be varying degrees of emotional pain, so it's on a continuum. What we're talking about today is going to be not 100% and not 0%. It's going to be on a continuum. So I want you to be aware of that because that's important, and it's important that you know that because that's going to make everything different. And so we're going to jump into it now and go ahead and talk about the effects that mothers have on children. And so one of the things that happens is that children who are raised by emotionally wounded mothers, they have unhealed trauma. They can be depressed, and they can be anxious and frustrated easily. And so it's going to be a difficult time for children that are being raised by these kinds of mothers. And so it becomes, for these type of mothers that have unresolved emotional pain, they just don't know how to express it. So it becomes unsafe many times for the child. Unsafe, and they sometimes the children feel responsible and for their mother's feelings, and so they end up with anxiety. They end up with a lower self-esteem, and so that's one of the things that happens. And it's going to happen because the mothers are projecting on their children many times what's inside of them. And so children that have mothers that project on them their own emotional issues, they many times suppress their feelings. They don't want to let their emotions out because it causes their mother a problem, and she gets oftentimes gets sad or triggered or depressed when the children express their emotions. So they just don't express them. A home with a mother that is emotionally wounded is going to be a place that they're not going to find a lot of love, a lot of affection, because it's just, they may get some affection, but then they have problems with emotional regulation, mothers do, and so the children don't really feel like they're loved, accepted, and approved, and so this really causes cycles of insecurity, and as they grow into adults, not knowing how to express their emotions, not knowing how to be emotionally intimate, and so it causes children problems later on in life, and they have problems with being able to have good relationships, productive, healthy relationships. They just don't have them because they didn't have a mother that modeled health, how to deal with emotions in a healthy way. They just didn't have that. And so the result is the children are oftentimes confused, and they have anxiety, and they're unsure about how to get love. They just don't know how to be able to, because their mother is all over the map, all over the whole situation, and it's just it causes real insecurity, and they're just not going to be able to know exactly how to express their emotions or to be the person they were created to be. And so mothers affect that. And mothers are supposed to comfort. Mothers are not supposed to, shut down emotions because, for whatever reason, they're supposed to be comforting and helpful and nurturing. But these kind of mothers that have unresolved emotional pain can't do that very effectively, and so the child ends up wounded themselves. They're going to end up wounded themselves. They're going to end up with problems of being able to express themselves, and they're going to be shut down or they're going to be angry, one or the other, and that's what ends up happening. They end up with anger and fear in some cases, because see, the problem is that an emotionally wounded mother can't regulate their emotions. They're sometimes affectionate and loving, but other times they're yelling and screaming, and it's just a very difficult time for the child. And the child does not understand what's happening with their mother, so they internalize her own issues. They internalize her emotions and the way she expresses them. And that causes some children to grow up to be adults that are shut down, and that causes some adults to grow up, some children to grow up as adults that are angry. And that's the difference between the two. And that's going to cause a real problem. So they oftentimes grow up with guilt and shame and a lack of a self-image. Their self-image, who they are, is greatly affected by their mother and how their mother raised them. Many times they'll become hyper-vigilant because mom is, they want to just assess mom all the time to try to get an understanding of where mom's at, so I don't cause mom to trigger and get upset at me. And so they end up being people pleasers often. As they shut down their emotions, they become people pleasers, and they may even become perfectionistic, trying to reach this goal that moms, that maybe if I'm good enough, if I can be enough, then mom won't be upset at me. And so, but this is emotional role reversal, if you will, because children are not supposed to be hypervigilant and, walk on eggshells so that mom doesn't get upset, or mom doesn't get sad, or mom doesn't get some sort of emotional. And so the kids themselves end up with role reversal. They become parentified. They are losing their childhood. They're losing their innocence to a mother that has not resolved emotional pain. And when they lose their innocence to a mother that is not resolved emotional pain, they have a distorted understanding of love and connection. Mom doesn't love me all the time. She doesn't connect with me all the time. What am I going to do? And so they really look at love and being loved. It's intertwined with pain. And so it's very confusing to the child. And so they end up with thinking that intimacy or emotional connection, emotional intimacy, it causes anxiety for them because it just isn't going to work. And so they oftentimes, as adults, avoid closeness, and they don't want to be hurt. And so they end up with choosing a partner that they don't want to get too close to. They don't want to be emotionally vulnerable with, because they just don't trust. They don't know how to trust their own emotions, and they don't trust people, because people are like, they believe people, because they've internalized their mother's emotions, they believe that people can be hurtful and cause them problems. And so they become numb many times, and they fail to express their own emotions, and they don't have good boundaries. And so what happens is they get taken advantage of oftentimes by people that bust their boundaries, like their mother has, and also they because they're numb, they just don't have a very colorful life. They kind of live in black and white instead of color, and that's a real problem. And so they're confused and they're unstable, emotionally unstable, and that's going to be a hard way to live as an adult. As an adult, you don't want to be unstable and emotionally upside down, so to speak. And so what happens then is that we want to look next. Remember, I said that that unresolved emotional pain that mothers have causes real problems for their children. Well, unemotionally pain that's not been resolved, let's put it that way, pain that's not been resolved, and you have a mother that is emotionally wounded, she's going to be on one part of the spectrum or another. And there can be in between, of course. But she's going to be angry, or she's going to be shut down. One or the other, because of how she was raised. We just continue to perpetuate this whole situation, and that's not the best plan, but we do it. We do it. We raise children the way we were raised. And so when you have an angry mother, it's very unpredictable, and it's going to be anger and love in coexistence, anger and affection in coexistence. And that's really hard for a child to understand that. And it's going to cause mothers not to be angry. Mothers are not nurturing. They're not going to build up. They're going to tear down. They're going to tear down with their anger. And so safety. There's no safety for a child that is raised by an angry mother. And there's very little attachment, if any. Very little attachment, if any. Remember, I talked about attachment way back when, and attachment is a very important thing for a child. If they're not properly attached, it's going to affect them. And so they're going to be have problems with that. There's going to be tension for the child. They don't know whether the mom is going to be affectionate or whether she's going to be angry. And so that causes the child to repress their emotions, just don't show anything, kind of become invisible, hide, if you will, from an angry mother. And this inconsistency really causes insecurity, and children often feel responsible for their mother's anger. If I could just be a better child, if I could just do better, then mom wouldn't get angry at me. Why does she get angry at me? I don't do anything to cause her to get angry at me. These are some of the questions that children ask. And so they realize that love is conditional, or they internalize that love is conditional. It's not based upon unconditional love. And so they try to earn their mother's love. If I can just be perfect enough, if I, can be, good enough, then mom won't be upset. And so they suppress their emotions to try to be invisible, or they try to be perfect enough. They try to make mom feel better. That's not the job of a child, but that's what ends up happening, and they become parentified. And anger really usually comes out with harsh words and criticism, and emotion. It can also come out with mother withdrawing emotionally. So the child is, never knows what the ground is always shifting under this child, under a child or children that are raised by emotionally angry mothers. And so it affects them. It affects their self-image because they don't believe that they're valuable, important, and worthy. And it affects a daughter, actually affects a son, because the son feels guilty. He feels shame. He must be the cause of mom's being upset. And so he takes that into relationship as an adult, and really doesn't know how to be able to be vulnerable and transparent. And so it really causes problems for a son who was raised by an angry mother to have that kind of situation. For a daughter, she's been modeled emotion, she thinks that when she expresses her emotions, that it is, it's either going to be angry or controlling. And so she struggles. The daughter struggles with self-worth and identity, and I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough for mom because she gets angry at me, when I don't seem to do the things that she wants me to do. So maybe it's better then that I suppress my emotions, and love equals conflict. For both of these children, for a daughter and a son, love equals conflict. That's the emotional model that an angry mother shows her children. And her children, because their mother is angry, they don't know how to express their emotions. I mean, if I express my emotions at one time, mom gets angry. If I express my emotions another time, she withdraws. They don't know how to express emotions, and so they don't. And they don't know how to do that. And yelling and having resentment and emotional coldness, fear or control, causes the child to just not know how to be able to emotionally respond. And so they are sometimes overly agreeable. They numb, or they avoid emotions and conflict altogether. And so it's a problem for a child to have an angry mother. And adults, children that become adults, they have a real problem having calm, balanced, and really life-giving relationships. They just can't do it. So we've looked at anger. Now we're going to look at what happens to a child that's raised by a mother that's shut down. In other words, she was raised to not have a voice. That mother that's raising these children was raised to not have a voice, to just kind of be invisible. And so it's difficult for children with a mother that's shut down because the atmosphere is a quiet emptiness because there's no conflict. Opposite of anger. There's no conflict, but it's empty. It's not, there's no vibrancy to the relationship with a shut down mother or a emotionally unavailable mother. She probably, this mother and father, but let's talk about the mother, provides provides a home and shelter and food and everything, but it is without emotional connection. And we're designed by God to need emotional connection, so that's a problem. That's a real problem. The children know because of lack of affection and lack of, if you don't get touched as a child, and I have a number of people in my groups that have never been touched as a child, they feel not important. And so an unemotionally available mother many times will not hug or touch their children. And I have men that in my men's groups that have not been touched by their mothers. So the children are lonely and they're confused. And why doesn't mom love me? Why doesn't she love me? Why can't she be affectionate? Why can't she hug me? Why can't she hold me? Well, it's a bad situation for those kids. And she models emotions. And so the emotions that she models are ones of coldness and coldness and just unavailability. Well, the children then are internalizing coldness and unavailability. And I know you've met people, I have for sure in my groups, that are cold and they just don't know how to feel. And they've been so shut down for so long. And so, a child can get sad or angry, but they can't express that. Or if they do express it, this unemotionally available mother will minimize their feelings. And it really is difficult for a child to have any kind of emotional stability at all. And so they suppress their emotions, and they feel rejected, and they feel rejected, and they feel invisible, and so they feel disconnected, and they many times. Now, this was my wife when she was here. She's in heaven because I told you about all that. But my wife appeared independent, self-sufficient, and very put together. But guess what? My wife was totally empty because her mother was a shut-down mother. And so she was confused, and she didn't know really about how to be a woman. She didn't know how to express emotions. She was up, she was down. It was very, very hard for her. She was a caretaker, there's no question about it. An overachiever and a caretaker. And that's usually what happens. And my wife was a woman who did rather than be. She got her love for doing, rescuing other people, helping other people. And that's what often happens to children of unemotionally available mothers. That's what happens to their daughters. Their sons struggle with emotional intimacy in relationships, and they struggle with trust in relationships. And so that's a very hard place to be. Now you can see that what we've got here is a situation where mothers that have unresolved emotional pain, that have been emotionally wounded, that are angry on one side or shut down in the other, cause children to have really serious emotional problems. Now, 2 weeks ago, I talked to you about ideal mothers. I wanted you to have something to shoot for. Now I'm talking to you about mothers that have such an effect on their children, and it's not a good effect. It's not a good result. It's not a life-giving result. The reason I'm doing this, you may be wondering, why is he talking about this? Well, the reason I'm doing this is because I want you to make a serious commitment to addressing and getting emotionally healed so you can have children that are not affected by who you are because of your issues. And so the idea here is that you have a responsibility as a mother to be kind and gentle and have the fruits of the Spirit. You have a responsibility as a mother to raise your children and nurture them and raise them up in a way that will be beneficial to them. You have a responsibility to do this for your children because you were given by God as a mother. You bore the children, you had them at your breast, you tried to connect with them. But here's the reason why you do not want to continue trying to raise children, or if you don't have children, you got to get ready. Because if you raise children and you're emotionally unavailable as a shutdown mother, or you're angry mother because you've been wounded in your childhood and because you have not been able to get emotional healing, it's going to be causing your children a mess. And I see them in my groups, and it's very, very difficult for these adult children to actually navigate through life, navigate relationships, have good, healthy relationships. They just don't have them. So make a commitment that you're going to get emotionally healed. Make a commitment that you are going to do whatever it takes to get and pray and believe God for emotional healing. Because when you get emotionally healed, it's going to make a serious difference for your children, and you're going to be the best mother you can possibly be, because that's what God wants for you, and that's what I want for you.